everyone, this is Andrea from Doctors of Running, and today I'm here to do a post-race review of the Nike Streakfly 2. Today's the day after Memorial Day here in the US, and I raced a road mile on Sunday and then another road mile on Monday. Both races I wore Streakfly 2, and I've got to say, this is hands down my favorite shoe ever for this distance. It just feels perfectly suited for running fast, for the road, although I think it will also be a pretty good track racer for those who don't want to race in spikes, and I'll get to that later. But first, let's talk about the specs. This shoe is so light. It's an ounce and a half lighter than the original Streakfly. So for a men's size 9, it's coming in at 4.5 ounces, which is crazy. It's almost as light as my pair of Nike Victory 2 spikes, which is nuts. So 4.5 ounces or 128 grams. Stack height, we've got 26 millimeters in the heel, 22 millimeters in the forefoot for a 4 millimeter drop. I've got to say, it feels more like a zero drop shoe to me than a 4 mil drop shoe, and you can kind of see just how the angle of the shoe is oriented. It definitely puts you more like at the front of your midfoot or your forefoot. So this shoe is definitely tuned for people who land further forward. It works really well for me. I tend to land at my lateral midfoot, and it felt perfectly natural. But I think for those who land further back, this shoe is going to feel very aggressive. It's definitely not a shoe that I would recommend using for like warm-ups or cool downs. Like, I normally run to my local track for my workouts. I wouldn't do that in this shoe. I definitely drive to the track, warm up in my like regular trainer, and then put this shoe on when I'm ready to do my actual workout. So just keep that in mind if you're one of those people who likes one shoe to be able to handle your whole workout, including warm up and cool down. This probably isn't it. So the shoe is a lot different from the original Streakfly 1. Besides it being a whole ounce and a half lighter, this shoe had a much higher drop. It was 32 in the heel, 26 in the forefoot. And besides that, it's a much more flexible shoe, and that's very noticeable. I thought that I was gonna like this shoe maybe for some 5K and mile races when I originally tested it, but after running in it more, it really just felt too soft, and the forefoot felt a little too flexible for me to like really feel inspired to run fast in. What I liked the original Streakfly for the most, and what I've still been using it for, are hill sprints. It just feels like perfectly suited for that. But this has definitely not been a racing shoe for me. This, however, is definitely a racing shoe. So besides the way the geometry is oriented, where it's really throwing you on your forefoot, you can see that there's a pretty steep and early forefoot rocker. We've got a little bit of toe spring here. The way it feels when running at pace, and when I say at pace, I mean like mile pace to 800 pace, you basically land loading the midfoot. You get like a little bit of cushion. It's not like a super firm feeling at initial contact, but then you get this really strong bounce into push off. And what I like about this shoe is it feels like it's really designed for forefoot loading. When you're running fast, let's say in like an Alpha Fly, it feels like the firmer forefoot, at least for me, almost makes me push off too fast, like I can't fully load the shoe. But this shoe really feels like I can load it as hard as I need to when I'm running at those faster like mile to 800 paces. And you know, that's what they say it's designed for, so I think Nike did a really good job there. Fit, it's definitely a racing fit. This shoe is pretty narrow throughout. The toe box is pretty low volume. Normally that would bother me. I don't really feel it when I'm running. I definitely feel a little pressure on the top of my big toe when I'm just like walking around in it, like before a race starts. But as soon as I start running in it, I don't notice it. But just a word of warning, if you're really sensitive to narrow fitting shoes, this shoe might not be the shoe for you. In terms of lockdown, I do have to cinch the laces pretty tight to get my heel to feel perfectly secure, but once I do, again, my foot feels secure in there, locked down, no issues. I really like the lacing system they have. It really, when you tie it tight, it really draws the upper together, and it really just envelops your foot. One thing I want to note about the outsole, there is not a lot of rubber here. This rubber provides pretty good grip, but I have had a couple occasions where I felt like I didn't have sufficient traction. One, I was doing a workout on the track, and this particular track develops like a puddle in one of the turns anytime there's rain, and I definitely could feel myself slipping a little bit when running through that little puddle. And the other stability issue I had in this shoe was in the second race I did, which was an out and back at the U-turn. Even though I had the upper cinch down a lot, I could still feel my foot sliding as I did the U-turn. I never noticed that on the track, but it's just something to be aware of if you're doing a road race that has a U-turn or several sharp turns. This shoe is not going to feel the most stable when making those sharp turns. Would I have used a different shoe yesterday knowing that? No, because I still really liked the way the shoe performed, but just something to be aware of. So again, I can't say enough good things about Streakfly 2. I definitely think I'll be using it for any mile or road races that I have in the future. I think on the track, I will personally stick with my Victory spikes. I like them for both the mile and the 800. But I think a lot of people who don't want to run in a spike are going to choose this shoe for anything from the mile up to the 5K, maybe even the 800. So just know that I wouldn't recommend using it if the track is wet, because traction is definitely an issue in the shoe on wet surfaces. But this shoe is really versatile. At, let's see, the price, $180. That's a pretty good deal for basically a pared down super shoe. I probably have maybe 15 miles on my pair because I've only used it for track workouts and the couple of races that I've done. And you can see that, the exposed midsole is dirty, but I haven't really ripped up the midsole or outsole at all. So I think how long the shoe lasts will depend on your personal mechanics, how hard you are on shoes. I'm gonna guess I'll get 100 miles out of this pair, maybe more. I'll definitely keep you updated. But I just love this shoe. I'm super inspired after this weekend. I ran a 4:59 downhill mile the first day and a 5:20, out and back hilly mile the second day, which are both PRs for me. So love the shoe. Hope you guys try it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and see you next time.